I have a question for Christians that believe in hell and also believe in an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God. Jeremiah 1:5 says that before you were in your mother's womb, before you formed, I knew you. So before God forms this human in its mother's womb, does God know if that human is going to go to hell or going to go to heaven? If God doesn't know, then God is not all-knowing. And if that God does know and chooses to create that human anyways, he is intentionally creating humans that will suffer for all of eternity. And that individual does not actually have free will because that God knew ahead of time when he was creating them that they would end up going to hell. And that person did not have a choice in that matter because it was already decided as soon as God formed them in their mother's womb. You cannot have an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God and hell.
This video lays out a challenge for Christians who believe in both hell and an all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful God. Here's the gist. If an all-knowing God creates people he knows will go to hell, then those people don't have free will. And if they don't have free will, then God is sending them to hell for no fault of their own. Since that is incompatible with a good God, then therefore hell is incompatible with an all-knowing and all-good God. All right, so that's a challenge. Let's pull out the red pen and give our response. At the heart of this challenge is a fundamental error in thinking. More specifically, this challenge has a mistaken understanding of how God's foreknowledge actually works. It assumes God's foreknowledge somehow causes my actions, and if it causes my actions, then I'm not free. But God's foreknowledge doesn't cause what will happen, rather it reports what will happen. And that is a really important difference. It's not God's knowledge of my future actions that cause my future actions, rather it's my actions that ground God's knowledge of future actions. Here's how philosophers put it. While God's foreknowledge is chronologically prior to my actions are actually logically prior to what God foreknows. Maybe an example will help. If I freely choose to eat Fruit Loops for breakfast tomorrow, then God will have always known that I would choose to eat Fruit Loops for breakfast tomorrow. However, if I freely choose to eat Cheerios for breakfast instead, then it would be the case that God will have always known I would freely choose to eat Cheerios for breakfast tomorrow. Now, how God actually knows the future is another question, and your answer will depend on whether you believe God is inside or outside of time, or whether you hold to an A theory or B theory of time, and we'll need to do that in a separate video. But for this response, here's the key takeaway. Just because God knew what you were going to do before you did it doesn't mean you didn't have a choice in the matter. You choose your actions. And when you choose to commit moral crimes, you deserve the consequences for those actions. That's what hell is all about. A just judge punishes people for their moral crimes. Ironically, this video attempts to show an incompatibility between hell and an all-knowing and all-good God. Yet it's precisely because God is all-knowing. He knows every moral crime you've ever committed, and it's precisely because God is all good. He cannot let injustice go unpunished. It's precisely because of those two things that hell exists.